I thought I was invisible. For 8 months, I cleaned the floors of the most dangerous man in the city. I learned his schedule. I avoided his eyes. I stayed quiet because quiet people survived. Everyone in the Moretti mansion knew my place. I was just the maid, the girl who carried coffee, the girl who disappeared when powerful people entered the room, the girl nobody would remember. But they were wrong. Because the night I sneaked out of that mansion to save my younger brother, Roman Moretti found me. And he discovered the one thing I had spent my entire life hiding. I wasn't weak. I was just tired of fighting alone. What happened next changed everything. The man everyone feared became the only person standing between me and the people who wanted me destroyed. But I never expected the biggest danger wouldn't come from his enemies. It would come from the moment he realized he couldn't let me go. 2 nights later, the routine broke. Nora's shift ended at 10. By 11, she was usually in her room, lights low, uniform folded over the chair, paperback open on her blanket even when she was too tired to read. That room above the garage was not much, but it was hers. A narrow bed, a small dresser, one window looking over the service road, pipes that groaned when the weather turned cold, a ceiling that sloped so low near the corner she had hit her head twice during her first week. It was not home, but it was a place where nobody watched her. At 11:16 p.m., the prepaid phone hidden in her duffel bag vibrated. Nora froze. No one called that phone unless something was wrong. She dug it out with fingers already tightening and stared at the glowing screen. Ben. The message was short. They found the apartment. I had to run. I need the rest tonight, or I'm dead. Please. The room seemed to tilt. Nora sat down hard on the bed. For several seconds, she could not move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the words until they stopped looking like language and became only shapes of panic. The apartment. The men. The rest. Tonight. She typed back. Where are you? The answer came fast. Alley behind St. Jude's. I can't stay long. Nora closed her eyes. St. Jude's Parish sat near the old industrial district, where warehouses leaned into each other like exhausted men and streetlights died without being replaced. She knew the area. Everyone who had grown up broke in that city knew the places where police came late and ambulances came slower. How much time? His reply came in pieces. They're driving around. Please, Nora. I'm sorry. The apology nearly broke her. Not because it fixed anything. Because she knew he meant it now, when fear had finally reached him. Nora stood. The cold inside her turned practical. Panic was useless unless it moved your hands. She pulled on her gray sweater over her white work shirt, shoved her feet into boots, and took the paperback from beneath her pillow. The money was inside. $4,200. Everything she had managed to save. Everything except the $800 she did not have. Her mother's wedding ring sat in a small cloth pouch at the bottom of the dresser. Nora took it out and held it in her palm. The gold was thin. The stone was tiny. Her mother had worn it every day, even while washing dishes, even while folding laundry, even in the hospital bed where she had become smaller and quieter toward the end. Nora curled her fingers around it. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she tucked it into her pocket. She would pawn it in the morning if morning came. Sneaking out of the Moretti estate was madness. The property was designed to keep enemies out and secrets in. Cameras watched the main gate, the side gate, the driveway, the garages, the east garden, the west garden, the pool house, and most of the service paths. Guards walked routes that looked lazy until you tried to avoid them. Motion lights brightened at the smallest movement. Dogs slept somewhere beyond the kennels, quiet enough that Nora had never heard them bark, but awake enough that everyone warned new staff not to test their luck. But Nora had spent 8 months learning the estate the way frightened people learn exits. There was a blind spot near the old greenhouse. A storm had knocked a branch into one of the camera mounts the week before, and nobody had repaired it yet. The kitchen staff used that path sometimes when sneaking cigarettes. The rusted latch on the greenhouse door did not always catch. If she moved quickly, kept low near the hedges, and avoided the gravel where footsteps carried, she might make it to the service road. Might. Her phone vibrated again. Ben, they're coming back around. Nora slipped down the garage stairs. The night air hit her like a slap. Rain had stopped, but the world was still wet and shining. Frost edged the grass. The trees shuddered under wind. Somewhere far off, a gate motor hummed, then fell silent. Nora kept to the shadows. Her boots sank slightly into the wet ground. She pressed herself against the stone wall near the back kitchen in trance and waited as two guards passed on the lower path, speaking in low voices. One laughed. The sound vanished quickly into the cold. When they turned the corner, she moved. Across the service path, past the kitchen alcove, toward the greenhouse. The phone vibrated again. This time it was not a text. Ben was calling. Nora's breath caught. If she ignored it, he might panic. If he panicked, he might run into the street. If he ran into the street, he might be seen. She ducked into the shadowed alcove by the back kitchen in trance and answered. Ben, she whispered. His breathing filled the line, ragged and wet. Nora, listen to me. Stay where you are, but hide. Do not let them see you. You said you'd have it. I know. You promised. The words struck harder than accusation because they were true. I have most of it, she said, keeping her voice low. I need until morning for the rest. I can get it. I just need you to stay alive until morning. They said tonight. Ben, listen to me. I can't do this. You can. You will. You owe me that. A small broken sound came from him. I'm scared. Nora shut her eyes. There he was. Not the gambler. Not the liar. Not the reckless boy who had signed his name to a debt he could never pay. Just her little brother in the dark, afraid. I know, she whispered. I'm coming. She was so focused on his breathing that she did not hear the footsteps. Not at first. Then the air behind her changed. A large hand closed over the phone. Nora gasped and turned, but there was nowhere to go. Roman Moretti stood directly behind her, his face half-shadowed beneath the security light. He was dressed in dark trousers and a black coat thrown over a white shirt. His hair was damp, his jaw hard, his eyes like pale fire in the dark. He took the phone from her hand. Not roughly. Worse. Easily. Nora. Ben's voice crackled from the speaker. Are you there? Roman looked down at her. Then he ended the call. The screen went black. He slid the phone into his pocket. Mr. Moretti. He moved. Nora stepped back instinctively, but the brick wall caught her shoulders. Roman placed one hand against the wall beside her head, boxing her in without touching her body. His other hand lifted, not to strike, not to grab, but to rest two fingers beneath her chin and force her face upward. His anger was not loud. That made it terrifying. You are outside at midnight, he said, voice low, using my blind spots, whispering into a hidden phone, promising money to a man who sounds like he's about to cry. It's personal. Nothing on my property is personal. The words fell softly. They landed like iron. Nora's hands trembled. She curled them into fists at her sides. It has nothing to do with you. Roman leaned closer, studying her face. That's the second lie you've told me this week. Rainwater dripped from the edge of the roof onto the stone near their feet. Drip, drip, drip. The sound seemed too loud. Please, she said. Give me my phone. Who is he? Her throat tightened. No one. Roman's eyes went colder. Nora. It was not shouted. It did not need to be. Her name in that tone made something inside her surrender. My brother, she said. A flicker passed over his face. Not relief, exactly. Not gentleness. But something shifted. The dark edge of his anger changed shape. Your brother. Yes. Name. Ben. Why is Ben hiding behind St. Jude's at midnight? Nora looked away. Roman's fingers tightened under her chin, not painful, but firm enough to bring her gaze back. Because he owes money, she whispered. To whom? She did not answer. The silence became dangerous. Roman's voice dropped further. To whom? Liam Sullivan. For 1 second, the estate seemed to hold its breath. Then Roman smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Nora understand why grown men went pale when he entered a room. Sullivan, he said softly. That idiot is running games in my territory again. Nora's knees almost gave out. You know him? I know everything that crawls where it shouldn't. He's going to hurt Ben. Roman stepped back. The sudden space between them felt almost violent. How much? Nora swallowed. 5,000. How much have you paid? Most of it. How much is left? She hesitated. His eyes sharpened. Nora. 800. For the first time since he had found her, Roman looked genuinely still. Not calm. Still. As if something inside him had stopped moving. You have been starving yourself, he said slowly. Working extra shifts, walking around this house in shoes that should have been thrown out 6 months ago for $800. She hated the tears that rose to her eyes. I didn't have a choice. There is always a choice. That's something rich men say. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Nora's eyes widened. She expected punishment, anger, a cold command to pack her things. Instead, Roman stared at her for a long moment, and something unreadable moved behind his amber eyes. Then he turned toward the detached garage. Come. Nora stayed where she was. What? He looked back over his shoulder. Are you getting in the car, or are you going to let Sullivan find him first? That moved her. Fear broke through pride. Nora ran after him. The black SUV waited under the portico like a sleeping animal. Roman did not call a driver. He took the wheel himself. Nora climbed into the passenger seat, soaked from the mist, shaking so hard she had to clasp her hands together to hide it. The engine roared. The gates opened before they reached them. Of course they did. Roman drove fast, but not recklessly. The city blurred past the windows in dark streaks of wet pavement, empty sidewalks, shuttered storefronts, and red traffic lights he treated like suggestions when the streets were empty enough. Nora kept her eyes on the windshield wipers. Back and forth, a rhythm for panic. You should have told someone, Roman said. She laughed once, a small bitter sound. Who? The police? No. A friend? No. You? Roman did not look at her. His hands tightened on the wheel. You work in my house. That doesn't make me your responsibility. No, he said. It makes you under my roof. The difference mattered to him. Nora did not understand why. The city changed as they drove. The polished streets near the estate gave way to older blocks, then narrow roads, then the industrial district where buildings crouched beneath old soot and broken neon signs. St. Jude's Parish appeared at the corner, its stone walls blackened by decades of weather. The alley behind it was barely lit. Roman turned in without hesitation. The headlights cut through the dark. Ben stood near a rusted dumpster with blood at the corner of his mouth and terror in his eyes. His jacket was torn. One arm was wrapped around his ribs. 3 men surrounded him. Liam Sullivan was easy to identify even if Nora had never seen him before. Heavy set, shaved head, cheap leather jacket, a steel pipe hanging loosely in one hand like he wanted everyone to notice it. Nora reached for the door. Roman's voice stopped her. Stay in the car. That's my brother. And if you get out, you become leverage. She froze. He stepped into the rain alone. No weapon in his hand. No guard at his back. No hurry in his stride. Nora watched through the windshield as Roman Moretti walked into the alley like the darkness had been waiting for him. Liam turned first, annoyed. Hey, he called. Private business. Roman did not slow. At 5 feet away, he stopped. Nothing in this city is private when it happens on my concrete. Liam's face changed. At first, confusion. Then recognition. Then fear. It was almost shocking to see how quickly a man with a steel pipe could become a boy caught stealing. Mr. Moretti, Liam stammered. I didn't know you were. No, Roman said. You didn't. The 2 men behind Liam took a step back. Ben looked from Roman to the SUV, then saw Nora through the windshield. His face crumpled. Nora pressed one hand to the glass. Roman did not turn. I hear you are collecting a debt, he said. Small thing, Liam rushed. Just a kid being stupid. Nothing that concerns you. Roman tilted his head. You are threatening a boy who belongs to a woman who works in my house. Liam swallowed. Nora felt those words in her bones. A woman who works in my house. Not a maid. Not the help. A woman. Mr. Moretti, we didn't know. You didn't ask. The debt is $5,000. One of Liam's men said it too quickly, too foolishly, before fear caught up with his mouth. Roman's eyes never left Liam. The debt is cleared. But Liam stopped himself. Rain ticked against metal. Somewhere in the alley, water rushed through a clogged drain. Roman took one step forward. Liam flinched. The debt, Roman repeated, is cleared. Liam nodded so fast it looked painful. Cleared. Of course. Done. We won't go near him again. No, Roman said. You won't. His voice became softer. That was when the alley turned colder. If I hear your name near hers again, I won't send a warning. I won't send men. I won't send a message. I will simply remove the problem. Liam's face went gray. Yes, sir. Leave. They ran. Not walked. Not backed away with dignity. Ran. The steel pipe lay abandoned on the wet pavement. Roman watched until they disappeared. Then he turned to Ben. Nora could not hear every word through the glass, but she saw enough. Roman stood over her brother with a stillness more frightening than fury. Ben nodded. Once. Twice. His shoulders shook. He looked toward Nora again, eyes shining with shame. Roman said something. Ben lowered his head. Then he stumbled away down the alley. Nora opened the door before Roman reached the SUV. Ben. Roman's hand closed around the edge of the door, holding it half shut. Let him go. He's hurt. He can walk. He's my brother. Roman looked at her, rain running down his face, his white shirt clinging to his chest beneath the open coat. And tonight he almost got you killed. That silenced her. The drive back was worse than the drive there. There had been terror before. Now there was aftermath. Nora sat with the money still hidden inside her sweater, her mother's ring heavy in her pocket, and the knowledge that Roman Moretti had erased a debt with one sentence. No money changed hands. No bargain was spoken. That was the part that frightened her most. Men like Roman did not give things away. They collected later. When they returned to the estate, fog had gathered over the grounds. The iron gates closed behind them with a deep metallic finality. Roman parked near the private entrance, but did not turn off the engine immediately. Green dashboard light carved his face into sharp planes. Thank you, Nora said quietly. He said nothing. I'll pay it back. His eyes shifted to her. No, I will. I can work extra shifts. I can. Stop. Her mouth closed. Roman turned off the engine. The sudden silence filled the car. You were never going to catch up, he said. Not with your wages. Not with that brother. Not with men like Sullivan circling. You were bleeding into a bucket with a hole in it. Nora stared down at her hands. I had to try. Yes, Roman said. That's the problem. Her eyes lifted. What does that mean? It means people like you keep trying until there is nothing left of you. People like you. The words should have sounded cruel. Instead, they sounded like a diagnosis. Roman opened his door. Come. Nora did not move. Where? He looked back. You don't live above the garage anymore. Part 3. The room in the East Wing. Nora had cleaned the East Wing only twice. Most staff were not allowed there unless summoned. The wing had its own corridor, its own staircase, its own quiet. The air smelled different beyond the mahogany doors. Less like polish and cooking and laundry. More like leather, old books, expensive soap, and secrets. Roman led her there without explaining. Nora followed because refusing him seemed impossible and because her legs were still trembling from the alley. Her wet boots left small dark marks on the floor. She noticed them with absurd panic. I'm dripping on the marble, she said. Roman did not look back. It will survive. That was not the problem. The problem was that Nora knew her place in that house. She knew which doors were for people like her and which doors were not. She knew the difference between a service staircase and the main stairs. She knew which bathrooms she could use and which ones she cleaned. She knew that the East Wing belonged to Roman Moretti, and crossing into it felt like stepping into a country where the laws had not been explained. He stopped before a heavy door near the end of the hall and unlocked it. The room beyond was enormous. Nora stood on the threshold, too stunned to enter. A fire burned low in a marble hearth, casting gold across dark paneled walls. A king-sized bed stood at the center of the room, draped in charcoal linen and deep blue silk. There was a sitting area near tall windows, a velvet armchair, shelves of books, a writing desk, fresh flowers in a crystal vase, and a bathroom visible through a half-open door where white stone gleamed softly under recessed lights. It looked like a hotel suite meant for people who did not check prices. Roman stepped inside and turned. This is yours. Nora stared at him. No. His brows drew together. No. No, she repeated, and the word came out stronger the second time because fear had finally become anger. I don't know what this is, but no. Roman's expression sharpened. You would rather go back to the garage? I would rather understand what is happening. For a moment, neither moved. Then Roman closed the door behind them. The click echoed through the room. Nora's chest tightened. Roman noticed. Of course he noticed. His gaze dropped to her hands, curled white-knuckled at her sides, then returned to her face. He stepped away from the door. Not closer. Away. It startled her. You are not locked in, he said. She hated how badly she needed to hear that. You said I don't live above the garage anymore. You don't. Because you decided? Because the people who threatened your brother now know you matter to me. The words fell into the room with dangerous weight. Nora went still. I don't matter to you. Roman's face did not change. You do. You don't know me. I know enough. No, she said, shaking her head. You know my schedule. You know where I eat lunch. You know my brother is an idiot. That is not knowing me. Roman watched her for a long moment. Then he removed his coat and threw it over the back of the chair. His white shirt was damp. The red line on his cheek had darkened from rain. In the firelight, he looked less like a society photograph and more like what he truly was. A man built by violence, discipline, and survival. I know you apologize before people decide whether they're angry, he said. Nora blinked. I know you stand near exits. I know you cut your food into small pieces because you learned to make meals last. I know you never take the elevator if you can use stairs because elevators make you feel trapped. I know you flinch at sudden male voices, but you force yourself not to step back because you hate giving people the satisfaction of seeing fear. Her throat closed. I know you keep painkillers in your apron pocket. I know you send half your pay somewhere before buying anything for yourself. I know you once gave your dinner to the old gardener's dog and pretended you weren't hungry when Mrs. Bell asked why you looked pale. Nora's eyes burned. Stop. I know you have spent 8 months trying to convince my house you are furniture. I said stop. Roman fell silent. The fire cracked softly. Nora turned away because she could not bear his eyes. Anger was easier than being seen. Anger gave her something to hold. She crossed her arms over her wet sweater and stared at the room she had no right to occupy. What do you want from me? The question was barely above a whisper. Roman did not answer quickly. That frightened her more than any immediate demand would have. I want you safe. Nora laughed, but it broke halfway through. Men like you don't want people safe. You want them owned. His jaw flexed. Sometimes those look similar from the outside. They are not similar. No, he said. They are not. That answer took some of the heat from her rage, but not the fear beneath it. He walked to the writing desk and opened a drawer. Nora stiffened until he took out her prepaid phone and placed it on the desk. You can call your brother, he said. You can call anyone. You can leave this room. You can leave the house, though I advise against doing that tonight without security. Nora looked at the phone. It might as well have been a test. And my job. You no longer clean floors. I need money. You'll be paid. For what? Roman's eyes held hers. For staying alive. That is not a job. No, he said. It's an order. There he was again. The man used to obedience. Nora lifted her chin. You can't order me to be safe. No, Roman said quietly. But I can make it harder for the world to touch you. The room seemed too warm. Her wet clothes clung to her skin. Her emotions had become tangled beyond naming. Fear, exhaustion, resentment, relief, humiliation, and something more dangerous because it felt too close to gratitude. She hated gratitude when it pointed toward a man like Roman Moretti. I don't want your charity. It isn't charity. Then what is it? Roman's gaze dropped to the place where her mother's ring sat in her pocket, as if he could see through fabric and history. It is recognition. The word unsettled her. He moved toward the door. Bathroom has towels. There are clothes in the wardrobe. They should fit. Nora stared. You had clothes ready? Roman paused. The question hung between them. His silence was answer enough. A chill moved through her despite the fire. How long have you been planning this? Roman turned his head slightly. Planning? No. Watching? Yes. The honesty struck harder than a lie. Nora's voice thinned. That should scare me. It does. He did not sound offended. That made it worse. Roman opened the door. Sleep. Mrs. Bell will bring breakfast in the morning. I'm not some rescued thing you can put in a room. No, he said. You're a woman who has been carrying too much alone for too long. His eyes shifted over her face, and for a moment, the dangerous mask slipped enough to reveal something old and scarred underneath. I know what that does to a person. Then he left. The door remained unlocked. Nora stood in the center of the room for a long time, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. Only when the house went quiet did she move. She checked the door first. Unlocked. She checked the windows. Locked, but not barred. She checked the bathroom. Empty. She checked the wardrobe. Inside were clothes. Simple, expensive, soft. Sweaters, trousers, undergarments still wrapped, shoes in her size. Not gowns. Not costumes. Not the kind of clothing a man bought for a fantasy. Practical things. Warm things. Things chosen by someone who had noticed she was always cold. Nora sank onto the edge of the bed. That was what nearly undid her. Not the room. Not the money. Not Roman's power. The socks. There were thick wool socks folded neatly on the shelf. She picked up one pair, held them in both hands, and began to cry so quietly even she could barely hear it. In the morning, breakfast arrived on a silver tray carried by Mrs. Bell, the head housekeeper, whose face rarely showed surprise. Today, it showed none, but her eyes flickered once around the room before settling on Nora. "Mr. Moretti said you should eat," Mrs. Bell said. Nora sat in the armchair wearing borrowed trousers and one of the soft sweaters from the wardrobe. Her hair was damp from the shower. She felt like an imposter in her own skin. "I'm not hungry." Mrs. Bell set the tray down. "Nobody asked if you were." There was toast, eggs, fruit, coffee, and a small pot of tea. More food than Nora usually ate in 2 days. Mrs. Bell adjusted the spoon beside the cup. Then, without looking at Nora directly, she said, "I worked for his mother." Nora looked up. Mrs. Bell's hand stilled on the tray. She used to bring stray cats into the kitchen during winter. Mr. Moretti was a boy then. Serious little thing. Always watching doors. He would pretend he didn't care, then sneak downstairs and leave milk out after everyone slept. Nora did not know what to say. Mrs. Bell straightened. "This house makes monsters of men if they let it. His father let it." Roman, she paused. Roman learned to become frightening before anyone could make him helpless again. The words stayed in the air. "Why are you telling me this?" Nora asked. Mrs. Bell looked at her then. "Because fear is useful, Miss Vale. But only if you aim it at the right thing." She left before Nora could answer. That day, the house treated Nora differently. Not openly. No one dared make open assumptions under Roman's roof. But eyes followed her. Conversation stopped when she entered the kitchen to return the untouched silver tray. A younger maid named Elise looked at Nora's sweater, then at the east corridor, then quickly away. One of the guards near the back door nodded to her, as if she had become someone requiring acknowledgement. Nora hated it. Invisibility had been protection. Now attention clung to her like perfume. By noon, she could not stand the room anymore. She took the service staircase out of habit, then stopped halfway down, furious with herself. She was not staff anymore. Or was she? She did not know what she was. That was the problem. She found Roman in the main library. Of course. He stood near the window, speaking to 2 men in dark suits. One held a folder. The other had a bruised jaw. When Nora entered, both men went silent. Roman turned. His gaze moved over her sweater, her face, her bare hands. "You ate nothing." Nora's temper sparked. "Good afternoon to you too." One of the men coughed into his fist. Roman did not look amused, but something in his eyes changed. "Leave us," he said. The men disappeared. Nora waited until the doors closed. "I need to understand what happens now." Roman crossed to his desk. "What happens now is Sullivan stays away, your brother breathes, and you stop wearing yourself down to bone. Ben called me this morning." "I know." Her eyes narrowed. "You know? He called the phone I returned to you. You didn't answer. How would you know that?" Roman leaned against the desk. "Because the phone pinged from the east wing." Nora stared at him. "You're tracking my phone?" "I track every device on this property." "That's insane." "That's security. It's control." Roman's expression hardened. "In my world, the difference is often whether you survive. I am not in your world. You were the moment Sullivan used your name." There it was again. The trap. Not a locked door. Not chains. A fact. Nora rubbed both hands over her face. "I need to see Ben." "No." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me." "No. You don't get to say no. He is unstable, frightened, and currently more useful to your enemies than to you. He is my brother. He is a liability." The word hit like a slap. Nora crossed the room before she knew she had moved. "Don't call him that." Roman's eyes flashed, but he stayed still. "He nearly handed your name to men who would have used you to collect his debt." He was scared. "Yes. So was I." The words broke from her before pride could stop them. Roman's face changed. Nora looked away, angry at herself now. "So was I," she repeated quieter. "For 3 months. Every day. Every time my phone vibrated. Every time I counted money and realized it still wasn't enough. Every time I imagined someone finding him in an alley and calling me from a number I didn't recognize. So don't stand there and tell me he is only a liability. He is foolish. He is selfish sometimes. He is weak in ways I am tired of forgiving. But he is also the boy I raised because nobody else stayed alive to do it." Roman said nothing. Nora's breath shook. "And if you think protecting me means cutting away everyone I love, then you don't want me safe. You want me empty." That landed. She saw it. Roman lowered his gaze for the first time since she had known him. The silence stretched. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. You may see him. Nora blinked. Roman opened the folder on his desk and removed a card. Not alone. Not today. Matteo will drive you. 2 guards will remain outside. You meet him in a public place for 30 minutes. That sounds like prison visitation. It sounds like compromise. Nora almost laughed. Maybe it was. Maybe in Roman Moretti's language, it was practically surrender. She took the card. Their fingers brushed. It was nothing. It felt like too much. That afternoon, Nora met Ben at a small diner near the river, with 2 guards outside and Matteo, Roman's driver, sitting at the counter pretending not to watch the door. Ben looked worse in daylight. Bruises bloomed along his cheek. His right eye was swollen. He wore guilt like a second jacket. Nora sat across from him. For a while, neither spoke. The waitress poured coffee. The spoon in Ben's hand trembled. I'm sorry, he said finally. Nora looked at him. I know. No, I mean it. I know. His eyes filled. I didn't think they'd go after you. You never think far enough to see who gets hurt after you. He flinched. She let him. For years, she had softened every truth for him, wrapped consequences in excuses, told herself love meant absorbing impact. But love had become a place where Ben brought his disasters and Nora made a bed for them. I can change, he whispered. Nora wanted to believe him. That was the cruelest part. I hope you do. He looked up. You're not coming with me? No. His panic returned. Nora. No, her voice shook, but it held. I am done running behind you with a broom, cleaning up blood before anyone sees the stain. Ben's face crumpled. You're all I have. She felt the words go through her. For a second, she was 19 again, standing in a cemetery, promising a 15-year-old boy he would never be alone. But promises made in grief could become cages. Nora reached across the table and took his hand. I love you, she said, but I cannot keep saving you from choices you keep making. He bowed his head. What do I do? You go to the address Matteo gives you. You talk to the counselor Roman arranged. Ben's eyes widened. Roman arranged? Yes. Why? Nora looked through the diner window at the black car outside, at the guard standing under the awning with his hands folded. I don't know yet. That was the truth. She did not know what Roman wanted. She only knew that the shape of her life had changed overnight, and she was still searching for where the danger ended and the rescue began. Part 4. The secret Roman never meant to tell. The first week in the East Wing passed like a dream Nora did not trust. She woke every morning expecting someone to bang on the door and tell her there had been a mistake, that she was late for the laundry, that the sheets in the south guest room needed changing, that the housekeeper wanted her back on the marble stairs with a bucket and brush. Instead, breakfast arrived. Clean clothes appeared. Her old shoes vanished and were replaced with black leather boots so well made they felt strange on her feet. Nora fought the comfort because comfort felt like debt. She made her own bed, folded the towels, cleaned the bathroom sink after using it. When Mrs. Bell caught her wiping down the mirror on the third morning, the older woman simply took the cloth from her hand. You are very bad at being looked after, Mrs. Bell said. Nora stared at the empty space where the cloth had been. I've never had practice. Mrs. Bell's face softened for less than a second. Most people who need it haven't. Roman did not crowd her. That surprised her. He was everywhere in the house, impossible not to feel, but he did not enter her room without knocking. He did not touch her again without warning. He did not demand conversations. He did not ask for gratitude. He did, however, notice everything. If she skipped lunch, a tray appeared with soup and bread. If she sat too long near the window at night, a guard shifted position below, visible enough to remind her she was not alone. If Ben called and upset her, Roman seemed to know before she said a word. On the 5th night, Nora found a stack of documents on the writing desk. A formal debt release. A statement from a rehabilitation counselor confirming Ben had attended intake. A lease agreement for a small room in a supervised residence across town. A receipt showing the Moretti organization had not paid Sullivan anything. Nora stared at that last page for a long time. Roman had not bought the debt. He had erased it by force of reputation. That should not have comforted her. It did anyway. She found him in the courtyard just after midnight. The estate was quiet, the air cold enough to turn breath silver. Roman stood beneath the stone archway, speaking on the phone in Italian. His voice was controlled, clipped. The red line on his cheek had faded to a faint mark. He wore no coat despite the cold. Nora waited near the doorway. When he ended the call, he did not turn immediately. "You should be asleep," he said. "You always know when I'm there." "Yes." "How?" "You hold your breath." She exhaled, annoyed. "I saw the papers." He turned then. "And? You didn't pay Sullivan." "No." "You threatened him." "Yes." "That isn't legal." His mouth curved faintly. "No." Nora stepped into the courtyard. The stone was cold beneath her boots. Somewhere in the dark garden, water dripped from leaves into a fountain. "Why help Ben after what you said about him?" Roman's expression grew guarded. "Because he matters to you. That's all. It is not a small thing." The answer unsettled her more than any speech would have. Nora looked away toward the fountain. Moonlight turned the water black and silver. "Mrs. Bell told me you used to feed stray cats." Roman went still. "Mrs. Bell talks too much. She said your mother did it first." Silence. Nora looked back. His face had closed. She recognized the look. She had worn it often enough herself. The instinct to protect a wound by making it look like stone. "You don't have to tell me," she said. "I know." He walked past her toward the covered edge of the courtyard, then stopped beside a stone bench. For a moment, she thought he would leave. Instead, he sat. That shocked her enough that she stayed where she was. Roman Moretti did not look like a man who sat with people in courtyards at midnight to discuss pain. But there he was. "My mother's name was Lucia," he said. Nora did not move. She hated this house. The words were soft, almost conversational. She used to say it was built with beautiful materials and ugly intentions. My father thought that was funny. He thought most of what she said was funny until it embarrassed him. Nora approached slowly and sat at the far end of the bench. The distance was deliberate. Roman noticed. He said nothing. "She fed strays because my father hated anything uncontrolled," he continued. "Cats on the back steps. Birds nesting in the shutters. My mother would hide bowls of milk near the kitchen door. I used to tell her he'd be angry if he found them." "What did she say?" Roman looked toward the dark garden. "She said hunger was not a crime." The sentence entered Nora quietly and stayed there. "What happened to her?" Roman's jaw tightened. "For a while, only the fountain answered." "She tried to leave," he said. Nora's breath caught. "She had money hidden. A place arranged. My father found out. Not because she was careless. Because someone she trusted sold the secret." His hands rested on his knees, relaxed to anyone else's eye. Nora saw the tension in the fingers. "I was 14. Old enough to understand. Too young to stop him." He did not describe what happened. He did not need to. The absence of detail made it worse. "She lived," he said after a moment. "For a while. But she never tried to leave again." Something in her went quiet. Nora stared at the fountain. "She died when I was 20. By then, I had already learned the lesson my father wanted me to learn." "What lesson?" Roman turned his head. "That power is the only language cruelty respects." Nora felt the sadness of that settle around them. It did not excuse him, but it explained the shape of him. "Is that why you watched me?" she asked. His eyes returned to hers. "At first, I watched everyone. That is how I survived my father. It became habit. And then you were there." Such a simple answer. It was almost unbearable. "You made yourself small," he said. "But not weak. Never weak. You moved through this house like someone carrying glass inside her chest, terrified it would break if anyone touched her." I understood that. Nora's throat tightened. "I'm not your mother. No. I'm not something you get to rescue because you couldn't save her." His face changed, but he did not deny the blow. "You're right." The admission disarmed her. She had expected anger. Roman looked down at his hands. "I am not a gentle man, Nora." "No," she said softly. "You are not. I know how to remove threats. I know how to make men afraid. I know how to build walls, by silence, punish betrayal, and keep a house so secure it becomes a cage." His eyes lifted. "I do not always know how to protect without controlling." There it was. The truth beneath the mansion. Not a confession of love. Not a demand. Something rarer from a man like him. An admission of flaw. Nora held his gaze. "Then learn." The words left her before she could soften them. Roman stared at her. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I am trying." After that night, something changed. Not quickly. Not simply. Life inside a Mafia house did not become safe because of one honest conversation beneath a winter moon. Roman still took calls that made men pale. Cars still arrived late. Guards still moved through the grounds. Doors still closed around conversations Nora did not want to understand. But Roman changed in small ways. and small things mattered more to Nora than grand gestures. He asked before assigning guards to accompany her. He gave her a choice of rooms and seemed genuinely confused when she chose to remain in the East Wing, because moving again felt like losing more ground. He arranged for Ben's care, but did not use updates about Ben as leverage. He stopped saying, "my property." Once, during dinner in the small private dining room, he began to say, "in my house," then paused, looked at her, and corrected himself. "In this house." Nora noticed. Of course she noticed. Being unseen for years had made her fluent in details. By the second week, rumors had grown bold enough to reach her. She heard Elise whisper that Nora must have bewitched him. She heard one guard suggest Roman had finally chosen a mistress. She heard the cook say, not unkindly, "Poor girl doesn't know whether she's lucky or doomed." Nora wondered the same thing. Then Katerina arrived. Katerina Russo was not beautiful in a soft way. She was sharp, elegant, and cold, with black hair cut to her jaw and diamonds at her ears that flashed like tiny blades. She entered the Moretti estate on a Friday afternoon wearing cream silk and a smile that made the kitchen quiet. Nora saw her from the upper landing. Roman stood in the foyer below. He did not smile. "Katerina." "Roman." They kissed the air beside each other's cheeks like people performing civility over old knives. Nora turned to leave before she was seen. Too late. Katerina's gaze lifted. Their eyes met. Something amused and cruel entered the woman's face. "And this must be the maid." Nora froze. Roman's voice cut through the foyer. "Careful." One word. The temperature dropped. Katerina's smile widened. "How precious." Nora descended because running would look like fear, and she was tired of feeding people that. She reached the foyer with her spine straight. "Miss Russo," Roman said, his tone controlled. "This is Nora Vale." Katerina looked her over slowly. Of course. The two words held entire rooms of judgment. Nora said nothing. Katerina turned back to Roman. "You missed the council dinner." "I was occupied." "So I've heard." Roman's jaw tightened. Katerina stepped closer to him, lowering her voice, but not enough. "You are making people nervous. Pulling street debts, moving staff into private quarters, canceling meetings, embarrassing Sullivan without permission from the older families. They are asking questions. Let them. They are asking if you've become distracted." Roman looked bored. "That sounds like their problem." Katerina's eyes slid to Nora. "No, it sounds like hers." Nora felt the threat before she understood it. Roman did too. He moved one step. Only one. But Katerina's gaze snapped back to him. "You will not speak of her as if she is available for discussion," Roman said. Katerina's smile vanished. "There it is," she whispered. "That famous Moretti temper. I wondered what would finally bring it out in public." Nora saw the trap then. Katerina had not come merely to insult her. She had come to measure Roman's weakness. And Roman, by defending her, had shown it. That evening, Nora found out what kind of world she had truly entered. A brick came through the window of Ben's supervised residence just after sunset. No one was hurt. That was the mercy. The message tied around it was less merciful. Pretty cages still burn. When Matteo brought the news, Roman went silent in a way Nora had never seen before. She stood in the library, the note on the desk between them, her fingers cold. "Who sent it?" Roman did not answer. "Roman." His eyes lifted at his name. She rarely used it. He looked at the note again. "Someone who wants me to remember that caring makes a man predictable." Nora's stomach turned. "Katerina? Maybe. Maybe. There are several people who would enjoy testing this. This is because of me." "No. Don't lie to make me feel better." Roman's gaze sharpened. "It is because of me. Because I failed to hide what mattered." The words frightened her because they were not accusation. They were guilt. Nora looked at the broken brick dust on the desk. For the first time, she understood that protection could draw danger as easily as prevent it. Roman's attention had saved Ben. It had also placed a mark on everyone connected to her. "What happens now?" she asked. Roman's face became the face men feared. Now they learned the difference between a distraction and a line they should not have crossed. Part 5. The night the house stopped whispering. The Moretti estate did not sleep that night. Nora heard movement in the walls. Not literally, but close enough. Footsteps in distant corridors. Cars rolling over gravel. Low voices speaking through radios. Doors opening and closing softly. The house became alert around her, its luxury stripped down to function. Roman disappeared for 4 hours. No one told her where. Mrs. Bell brought tea she did not drink. Mateo checked the hallway twice. A guard named Enzo stood outside her door and pretended he was stationed there by coincidence. Nora sat on the edge of the bed wearing one of the soft sweaters from the wardrobe, her hands wrapped around her mother's ring. She had not pawned it. She had not needed to. The knowledge made her ache. At 2:07 a.m., Roman returned. Nora opened the door before he knocked. He stood in the hallway, black coat wet from rain, hair damp, face unreadable. For one terrible second, she thought there was blood on his cuff. Then she saw it was only rain-dark fabric and shadow. "Ben?" she asked. "Safe." The word nearly dropped her to her knees. Roman saw the movement and reached as if to steady her, then stopped himself before touching. That restraint broke something small and important inside her. "Thank you," she said. His eyes moved over her face. "You do not have to keep thanking me for preventing damage I helped cause." The honesty was quiet. Nora stepped back to let him in. He entered but remained near the door. Still learning. Still fighting whatever instinct told him to close distance, claim space, command the room. "What happened?" she asked. Roman removed a folded paper from his coat and placed it on the desk. Nora opened it. A photograph. Caterina Russo stood outside a restaurant with a man Nora did not recognize. The image was grainy, captured from a distance, but clear enough. The man handed her a small envelope. Another photo showed the same man near Ben's residence. A third showed him purchasing a prepaid phone. She sent the message. Nora said, "Yes." "Why?" "To see if I would react emotionally." "Did you?" Roman's mouth tightened. "Yes." Nora looked up. He did not hide it. "But not how she expected," he said. By dawn, the truth had spread through the house in fragments. Caterina had not acted alone. She had been courting support among older family allies who believed Roman's control of the eastern ports had made him too independent. Sullivan's harassment of Ben had not been random after Roman intervened. Someone had encouraged the pressure, hoping to expose a weakness. Nora was not the cause. She was the opportunity. The weak seam others thought they could pull until Roman's empire tore open. They were wrong. Roman did not explode. He documented. That was the part Nora would remember. Not violence. Not shouting. Not cinematic revenge under red lights. Roman Moretti, the feared king of the Eastern docks, responded to betrayal with files, dates, photographs, bank transfers, recorded calls, and men in expensive suits who carried legal documents instead of weapons. By noon, 3 contracts tied to Caterina's family were frozen. By 3, Sullivan's remaining operations in the Narrows were exposed to people who had no patience for sloppy criminals. By evening, Caterina Russo arrived at the estate again. This time, she was not smiling. Nora watched from the top of the stairs as Caterina entered the foyer in a black coat, diamonds gone from her ears. Roman stood below with 2 attorneys beside him and a folder in his hand. "You're making a mistake," Caterina said. Roman's voice was calm. "No. I made the mistake weeks ago when I allowed you to believe old history entitled you to new influence." Her face hardened. "You would burn a family alliance over a maid?" The word cracked across the foyer. "Maid." Nora felt every eye in the house shift. Roman did not look up at her. That mattered. He did not turn her into spectacle. He did not perform protection for an audience. He simply opened the folder. "I am ending a liability," he said. "You used a civilian residence to send a threat. You involved an addict in recovery. You attempted to provoke instability inside my home. You put your pride ahead of business." Caterina's face paled with each sentence. Roman stepped closer. "And you mistook tenderness for weakness." The foyer went utterly silent. Even the chandelier seemed to stop trembling. Caterina looked up then and saw Nora. For 1 second, hatred flashed naked across her face. Nora's hands tightened on the railing. Then something unexpected happened. Nora walked down the stairs. Every step sounded clear against the marble. Roman turned slightly, not stopping her, not summoning her, simply making space. That small movement gave her courage. She reached the foyer and faced Caterina Russo. The woman's eyes swept over her, searching for shame. Nora gave her none. "I cleaned this house for 8 months, Nora said. "I cleaned rooms after people like you walked through them pretending cruelty was elegance. I scrubbed floors beneath conversations that treated fear like currency. I know exactly what you meant when you called me a maid." Caterina's mouth tightened. Nora's voice remained steady. "But you should know something. Work never humiliated me. Hunger did. Panic did. Begging time for men who enjoyed hearing me beg did. Watching my brother fall apart did. Being invisible almost did. She glanced once at Roman, then back. But cleaning floors did not make me small. People who need someone beneath them in order to feel tall are the small ones. No one moved. Katerina looked as if she had been slapped without a hand being raised. Roman's expression was unreadable, but his eyes had changed. Nora saw pride there. Not possession. Pride. Katerina gave a cold laugh. How touching. No, Roman said. How final. The attorney stepped forward. Katerina read the first page. Her face changed. Whatever she saw there was enough to silence her. She left the estate 6 minutes later. No dramatic exit. No screamed threat. No shattered glass. Just the click of heels across marble, the opening of the front doors, and the quiet closing of a chapter that had probably begun long before Nora ever entered that house. That night, the staff whispered differently. Not less. Differently. Nora heard her name in the kitchen, but it no longer sounded like scandal. It sounded like confusion, curiosity, maybe even respect. Mrs. Bell said nothing, but when Nora came downstairs for tea, the older woman placed a plate of warm bread in front of her without comment. Nora ate every piece. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Ben stayed in treatment. He called every Sunday. Sometimes he sounded hopeful. Sometimes he sounded ashamed. Sometimes he sounded like a boy learning that apology was not an eraser but a beginning. Nora listened. She did not rescue him from discomfort. She did not send money. She did not promise to fix everything. That was harder than paying Sullivan had ever been. Roman continued to run his world from behind closed doors, but the East Wing changed. A second cup appeared beside his coffee in the mornings. Books Nora mentioned once appeared on the library table. The staff stopped pretending not to notice when she walked beside him through the hall. And Roman kept learning. Slowly. Imperfectly. Once, he assigned a guard to follow her to the garden without asking. Nora turned around, walked back into his study, and stared at him until he looked up from his papers. No, she said. Roman looked at the guard, then back at her. After a long pause, he nodded. Enzo, he called. Stay at the door. Nora left without thanking him. Later that evening, Roman found her in the greenhouse. The repaired camera above the door blinked red. She noticed. He noticed her noticing. I can have it turned away while you're inside, he said. That defeats the purpose of a camera. Yes. She smiled despite herself. Roman looked at that smile as if it were something fragile and unexpected placed in his hands. Why the greenhouse? He asked. Nora touched a leaf on a potted lemon tree. It's the first place I found a way out. He absorbed that. And now? She looked toward the glass roof, where rain began again in soft taps. Now I like knowing the door opens. Roman nodded once. The rain strengthened. Water blurred the world beyond the glass until the estate became lights and shadows. Nora stood among the plants, warm for once, wearing good boots and wool socks, with her mother's ring on a chain beneath her sweater. Roman stood beside her, not touching, waiting. That was perhaps the most astonishing thing of all. You said something once, Nora said, that everyone in this house has secrets. His eyes remained on the rain. Yes. What's yours? Roman was quiet long enough that she thought he might refuse. Then he said, I am tired. The answer was so simple that her chest hurt. Not lonely, not angry, not powerful, not cursed. Tired. Nora looked at him then, truly looked, past the tailored clothes and controlled voice, past the reputation, past the amber eyes that made men lower their heads. She saw the boy leaving milk for stray cats, the son who could not save his mother, the man who had built walls so high he had mistaken them for safety, the monster other people had needed him to become, and the exhausted human being still trapped inside the armor. She reached for his hand. Roman went still. Nora did not lace their fingers at first. She only touched his knuckles lightly, giving him time to pull away, giving herself time to choose. He did not move, so she took his hand fully. His palm was warm, rough, and careful around hers. I'm tired too, she said. Outside, rain washed the glass clean. No music swelled. No promise fixed everything. Ben was still healing. Roman was still dangerous. Nora still woke some nights with panic climbing her throat. The Moretti house still held shadows, and some doors inside it would always remain closed. But not all cages looked the same. Some were built by enemies. Some were built by fear. Some were built by the belief that survival meant never needing anyone. Nora had lived inside that last one for years. That night, in the greenhouse, she did not mistake Roman for salvation. She knew better than to turn a dangerous man into a fairy tale. He had power enough to frighten a city, flaws deep enough to wound anyone who stood too close, and a past that still moved through him like weather. But he also stood in the rain-lit glass room holding her hand as if strength, for once, meant gentleness. And Nora, who had spent most of her life trying to disappear, allowed herself to be seen. Not owned, not rescued like a helpless thing. Seen. The difference was everything. Months later, people would still tell stories about the night Roman Moretti walked into the alley behind St. Jude's and cleared a debt with a sentence. They would whisper that a maid had somehow changed the most feared man on the eastern seaboard. They would make the story smaller than it was because people often did that with things they did not understand. They would say he saved her. They would say she softened him. They would say love entered a violent house and made it human. But the truth was quieter, stranger, and far more difficult. Nora saved herself first. She did it with shaking hands, with stale sandwiches, with hidden money, with a phone call answered in the dark, with the courage to say no inside a room where every object told her she should be grateful, with the strength to love her brother without drowning beside him, with the grace to look at a dangerous man and demand that he become more than his damage. Roman did not make her visible. He only noticed what had already been there. A woman on tired feet, a heart beating like a trapped bird, a life that had been mistaken for silence because no one had listened closely enough to hear it fighting. On the last cold morning of winter, Nora walked through the main library carrying 2 cups of coffee. She paused by the shelf where Roman had first told her she missed a spot. Sunlight entered through the tall windows, pale and clean after a night of rain. Dust floated in the beam like tiny pieces of gold. Roman stood near the desk, reading. He looked up when she entered, not like a king seeing a servant, not like a predator seeing prey, like a man seeing the person whose footsteps he had learned to recognize not because he was hunting her, but because some part of him had begun waiting for the sound. Nora set 1 cup beside him. "You missed a spot," she said, nodding toward the shelf. For a moment, Roman stared. Then he laughed. It was quiet, rusted from disuse, almost startled out of him. The sound filled the library differently than power ever had. Nora smiled and walked to the window. Outside, the estate remained guarded, beautiful, and dangerous. The gates still stood tall. The cameras still watched. The city beyond still carried debts, threats, and men like Liam Sullivan looking for weakness in people who had already survived too much. But inside the library, for one rare minute, nothing hunted her. The rain had stopped. The floor was warm beneath her feet. And in the glass, her reflection looked back at her clearly, no longer a ghost passing through someone else's house, but a woman standing in the light, holding her own shape, carrying her own name, and finally understanding that being seen did not have to mean being trapped. Sometimes it meant the door was open. Sometimes it meant someone had noticed the cold before you had to ask for warmth. And sometimes, in the most dangerous house in the city, a woman who had spent her whole life surviving discovered that survival was not the end of the story. It was only the first page.